everybody. Welcome to Mindworx, where we like to focus on the philosophy of Sydney Banks, the three principles of mind, thought, and consciousness. And then when you have an understanding of the three Ps, it can really change the perception of your life in any way that you want it to. And so if you want to be more positive, by understanding of the three Ps, it can add positivity to your life. I'm Ben. I'm a teacher here in West Des Moines, and it's good to be with you.
Thanks, Ben. And I'm Mitch Kunert, principal also in West Des Moines, father of two glorious children that are probably outside my bedroom door right now.
And I'm Melissa. I'm a mother of two and also a teacher in the West Des Moines Community School District. And yeah, I've been unclogging toilets today and managing a lot of kids telling on each other. I've given myself a few timeouts. So the three Ps have been pretty integral to me today.
And by unclogging, you mean not at all. It's still clogged and you're still working.
Oh, no, it's still clogged. But you know what? It'll work out.
Right. You know, everything is a 3P moment. So, you know, you have to unclog a toilet. For some people, it could be the end of days. But you know what? It's just another bump in the road. No big deal. We'll get through it.
We're smiling and laughing, so we're good.
Yeah, that's true. The outlook is still positive for everybody in this room. So,
well, and you know what? Having a clogged toilet is a first world problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
At least I have a toilet. And there must have been a lot of toilet paper down there.
Which meant you were fully stocked on toilet paper prior to that scenario playing out. So
yes.
There's
apparently I have enough toilet paper. So I am fortunate.
Well, today, when we approached today's Zoom, we kind of talked about bringing it back to Sid Banks, who's the main philosopher behind the three principles. And we each said that we were going to pick a quote for today and go from there. So you guys want to round robin this a little bit and see how we go?
Yep.
I'm pumped and ready to go.
Okay, Ben, go.
Yep. Go for
it.
Right,
so here's this is a great book, by the way. It's The Missing Link, Sydney Banks, and it's just a series of quotes. And so this is a quote from Sid Banks. I'll try and keep it short. The more we dwell on the positive side of life, the more hope becomes a beacon, attracting positivity into our lives. Are you looking at Kitty? She's having a good time.
No, I'm looking at my kids coming in, so I apologize.
Okay. So it's the idea, you know, that when we teach our class, right, and we've taught, you know, so many people that I think it's had a profound impact based on the philosophies of Sydney Banks. But the idea that when you are choosing to you know, think positively, you are retraining your mind. And there's a scientific word for this. It's called neuroplasticity. And you are wired a certain way. And if you want to, cat's having fun, if you want to rewire your brain, if you're kind of a negative person and you want to be more positive, scientifically you can do that. But it does take practice. And it's funny, when we teach the class, we always talk about, yeah, you can be happy, but don't take it for granted. You actually have to work at it. And you have to get in the routine of thinking more positively. So this is something that happened to me this morning. I'm at our grocery store, Hy-Vee, and you know, there's a lot of anxiety now going to the store with the pandemic going on. There's arrows, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of the arrow. You're afraid somebody might get upset. I actually was wearing a mask. I can get to that later. But when I was checking out, the lady that was, you know, running the stuff through, she was just not in a very good mood and just kind of being a little rude. But I think that I have been training myself for the longest time to think more positively. Like, I recognize I don't know her story. I don't know who she is. I don't know if she's got somebody in the hospital who's facing, you know, COVID-19. And when you choose to think of the situation differently, it really does have a very different perception on your reality. And that was just a really cool thing, because it's funny. I'm probably better at doing this with people I don't know than with people I do know. And sometimes I am a little too quick to react without knowing the full story. So that was just kind of cool today, and it just made me think of that quote from Sid Banks. If you are practicing something, you're getting better at it.
Ben, I'm going to pick up on something that you just said, though. You're better at it with other people that you don't know. And that's very true, and I think that we have to be aware. We talk about this in the relationship aspect of the class, is that the closer you are with someone, the more you think you know what they're thinking, and the more you are comfortable, if you will, making up their own story too. So that there's actually some science behind that when we talk in that relationship piece of it. So I think we could all recognize that we tend to give grace more to people that we don't know than to the people that are closest to us. So that's a practice that we have to work on all the time.
Right, and we always use the analogy of traffic. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. The more that you are able to think more positively, the more you're able to brush something like that off.
So that's interesting that you're talking about that, because I'm listening to a book right now on Audible. I think it's called Stronger Moms, Stronger Sons. And it talks about how, you know, everybody's going through a lot, including my son, and who's going through puberty. He would be super embarrassed if I said that. And I just did. But I can't take things personally from anybody, right? Whether it's the person who's checking me out at Hy-Vee or whether it's my kids, because they're going through a lot, and the way that they react to things isn't necessarily a representation of what they feel about me. It's what they're going through on the inside. So I have to have empathy towards that and not take what other people are saying to me or acting towards me in a personal way, because it's probably not about me.
Yep.
Mitch, what was your quote?
Yeah. So, you know, when I approach this, it's interesting. All of my Sid Banks stuff is in the building that I really shouldn't be accessing right now. And so I don't have my missing link. I don't have my Enlightened Gardener. But here's the beauty of the 3 principles. If you just look up Sid Banks, actually Sid Banks quotes, one of the first ones, there's 130 Sid Banks quotes on a website here that, again, you just kind of gravitate towards one. And for me, we have this river analogy all the time that we use, and that's the one that I'm kind of gravitating towards. So mine is, let your negative thoughts go. They are nothing more than passing thoughts. You are then on your way to finding the peace of mind you seek. And I know a lot of people hear us and they listen to these and they're thinking to themselves, I can't do it. It's just not that simple. But when we think about that river of thought going past you, you have to reach in and you have to actually activate a thought to have it impact you. And when I say activate, you have to grab onto it. You have to think it. You have to feel it, whatever that might be. And if it's negative, if that thing is negative, the training that we're trying to do for you is to throw it back in the river. And I will say, the river is cyclical. It comes right back around, and you might reach in again, but the practice is to 2 things. We'd love for you not to reach in the river and grab that negative thought if you know it's going to make you feel bad. Or secondly, when you do reach into the river, acknowledge it, recognize that it made you feel bad, and get better at trying to throw it back in. It's going to come around, but get better at throwing it back in. There was a young lady in one of the 3 principles videos that talks about that river, but she used the analogy of a dam. She said, I grabbed onto something and it held it there, and then all of the other stuff started running into the dam. And that was a good way to think about, like, negative thoughts will accumulate if you don't release that dam to let it go away. So again, that mental health component, the river analogy, is one of my favorite for our class. And I think it's one that people do tend to relate to a little bit.
As a person who has taken both of your classes, both the introduction to 3 principles and the application of 3 principles, that is definitely the analogy that I've thought about the most. The river of thoughts and how I can choose to grab onto some and throw them back if it's not working for me. And I actually have thought about that in the last 24 hours. I'm probably listening to too much news and listening to too many podcasts about the coronavirus lately. But it seems like the news has changed a little bit this week in terms of talking about reopening businesses and returning back to normalcy. And I have a lot of conflicting thoughts about that, but I have to admit I felt a little bit excited thinking about returning to whatever normalcy might be. And to me, that means, going back to kids' sporting events and having practices and having activities that I can put into our family calendar, and actually driving places and seeing people that we have.
Just a simple haircut one of these days. I would love to have that happen to me.
I want to get my nails done. So I got a little bit excited about that. And then today I was listening to CNN in my car, and I was listening to the superintendent of the Dallas Independent Schools talking to a reporter, and he was talking about the steps that they were thinking about taking and returning back to normalcy or school in August. And he was talking about staggering schedules. He was talking about making the kids walk one way down hallways, and having not as many kids in the building at a time, and having kids eat in the classroom, and having teachers and students wear masks. And all of a sudden I started freaking out. I was like, that's not what I signed up for as a teacher. That's not what I want to do. And so my thoughts started cycling, and I could feel it physically and emotionally. I wasn't feeling well. And then I thought about what our intent was today with this Zoom. And one of Sydney Banks' teachings talks about how we need to learn to live in the present moment, right, and in the now. And I'm reading a quote right now. It's a little bit long. When you aren't distracted by your own negative thinking, when you don't allow yourself to get lost in moments that are gone or yet to come, you are left with this moment. This moment now truly is the only moment that you have, and it's beautiful and it's special. So I have to remind myself of that a lot, because I get caught up in that cyclical thinking about what's going to happen and constantly questioning what if. But I need to enjoy the moments right now. It's a gorgeous day. My kids are healthy. I'm healthy. The toilet will unclog eventually. But the now is what's important, and I can't control what's going to happen in the future. And I can't control what's going to happen when school eventually starts up again. And whatever does happen, it'll be fine. So choosing those thoughts out of that river. I'm going to throw that one back.
There you go.
I can't do anything about it.
There you go. And that's I think that's the beauty of the SID. There's so many quotes. There's so many ways to look at things. You just have to find something that resonates with you. And again, when we pull things back to Mindworx on Facebook, that's what teachers have done. That's what other people have taken a class. They're throwing stuff up there all the time that is just a gentle nudge that, yep, this too shall pass, or, you have control. It's your choice. And so, Ben, any last thoughts here before we wrap up?
I have a lot of thoughts. I did a Mindworx minute this week about brushing your teeth, and it came from our friend Ashley. She's part of the 3P network, and what she was saying is that when you brush your teeth for 2 minutes, that's what you're supposed to be doing, 2 minutes, whatever. It's amazing how few of us are actually brushing our teeth. We are in a different place. We have let our thoughts in our mind run ragged. And it's amazing because sometimes you're not aware. The research says that there's 60 to 100,000 thoughts in a day. When you're brushing your teeth, you may not even be realizing what you're thinking, but you're left with a feeling of anxiousness. And maybe without knowing it, subconsciously, you're thinking about that meeting you have to be at, at 11 o'clock, and the people who are going to be in that meeting. And when you're more aware of your thinking, you can totally change not just what you're thinking, but how you're choosing to think about those events. And that's just been the beauty of the 3 principles.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, you guys. Well, that kind of brings us to the close of this Zoom session. And again, keep looking for our content on Wednesdays. We try to get them as close to 5 o'clock as possible. Sometimes the producer hasn't been on time most days, but we'll get there. And remember, Mindworx, www.mindworxforme.com is the website. And then just look for us on Facebook as well. So, you guys, as always, good to see you. Ben, did you golf today or yesterday? Are you golfing tomorrow?
Well, I did, and that's another whole 3-piece story about other, what other people know about golf and what they don't, and social distancing, etc. We'll save that for next week.
Sounds good. All right.
I'll update you all on my toilet very soon.
Yeah. Amen to that. All right, you guys, have a great night.
Okay. All right. Bye.